Hey everyone, Liz Landine here, your Essential Strategy and Action Coach with your Strategy Slay tip of the day. Today's tip is to find ways to calm your overactive mind. And I'm saying that from beautiful, sunny Springdale, Utah, just outside of Zion National Park. And I've come here to quiet my mind in some ways. So like most entrepreneurs, our brains are always active, right? They always seem to be on, which most of the time is a wonderful thing, right? It's because of this activity that we have businesses and we're productive and we get things done, and many times we come up with, right, some of our best ideas. But it's important that we allow ourselves and our brains some downtime to reset, to recharge, and to replenish. And as much as we know how important this is for us personally and professionally, if you're like me, when it's time to really disconnect and do things that benefit us mentally, emotionally, and or physically, it can be really difficult to shift into that mental space and find calm and peace in our minds. And myself and many others out there that I personally know really struggle with standard forms of meditation practice for calming the mind. And I've tried off and on for the last 20 years or so, and I just can't seem to get into it. And, I find joy and calm in doing things like CrossFit and HIIT workouts and spinning and strength training. But these activities don't necessarily help me to quiet my mind when I really need to, like when it's time to go to bed or when I'm lying awake at 3 a.m. in the morning and my brain's just racing and on fire, or even just when my body needs something less strenuous to do. And what works for some doesn't mean it works for everyone. And I've spent years trying to fit into the box of what I thought the standard forms of practice for calming the mind are. And I think a silver lining to the quarantine is that I have finally embraced the fact that I don't have to do it like everyone else. I've adapted and found my own way to get my mind and my body what it needs to thrive and function optimally. I'm literally in love with the 3 practices I have found over the last few weeks that work amazingly well for calming and quieting an overactive mind. And I'm excited to share them with you and hope you find some benefit from them as well. Each of them came very natural to me and easy to incorporate into my life. And they aren't forced, and I actually look forward to doing each of them. So here we go. Number 1, practice a 4-part meditation. There might be a fancier term to this than 4-part meditation, but that's what I've been calling it. And I learned this from Melissa Hartwig. She's the founder of the Whole30 nutrition movement, during an interview that she did on Wild Ideas Worth Living podcast. It's a great podcast. Check it out if you haven't seen it or heard it. And basically what she explained is she does this 4-part meditation. And part number 1 is think about what you're grateful for, right? So take some time to be grateful. Number 2 is to lift someone up or send them light. So think about somebody that you want to send some good energy to. Number 3 is think about your intention for the day. And 4 is be in the moment and listen to the sounds around you. There's no time limit. You can just take as little or as much time as you'd like. I usually take 5 minutes or so, and typically I'll do it in the morning before I get out of bed, and I also do it when I lay in bed at night if I can't fall asleep right away, and I also will do it if I wake up during the middle of the night and can't go back to bed. I find it puts me to sleep pretty quick, and I'm not asking my mind to think about nothing, right? I'm giving it enough to think about, but it's intentional, and it's very relaxing thoughts that I usually fall asleep before I finish the practice, and it's a nice way to kind of drift to sleep thinking of these kind of kind thoughts. So the second practice I have found is find 2 to 3 sounds that really resonate with your mind. And I think I'm big on sleeping with silence. For me, I can't sleep with TV on, nor do I really want to, and I don't like a lot of noise. I find it really distracting. But on nights that I just cannot get my mind to quiet and rest, I found that 3 types of sounds work really well for me. and I'll know which one I want to hear depending on, you know, how I'm feeling. I'll know pretty quick. So the first two sounds is one called pink noise, and the other one is called blue noise. And you can just Google those in YouTube. I just put on YouTube videos. And they kind of sound like a constant rainfall or even like static. Pink noise is a little higher pitched, blue noise is a little bit of a deeper pitch. So depending on what I'm in the mood for, I put that on when I don't want any talking, and I just set it for an hour. I don't want it playing all night. I just set it for like an hour and it goes off on its own. The other one I use for noise or sounds to help me relax at night is, this one's amazing, and this just came to me all of a sudden a few weeks ago, and it's yoga videos. So like yoga instructional videos, and I found it helps relax my brain, but you know, it's not so quiet that you start thinking again. And it's just when I need a little bit more distraction, but it's very soothing. And I actually watch Yoga with Adriene on YouTube, and she's great. So play around with the noises and frequencies that work for you. Find a few options. And, you know, again, it will change from time to time depending on what the mind finds relaxing in that moment. And then the third practice is use a timer. And I do this in two instances. One, when I read, because I have found that sometimes I get anxious when I'm reading because I'm like, am I taking too long? Like, how much time should I set aside to read? I have other things to do. So I'll set it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then I can just relax and read. And I know the timer will go off, and then I can move on. The second one is when I'm stretching. So I've started to incorporate stretching into my day, and I haven't been able to connect really with yoga, right? But I also know how much my body would really benefit from it, and that my body feels and works better when it's properly stretched and mobilized. So I decided first not to call it yoga for whatever reason. I was just having a mental block about that. And I told myself to just get on the ground and start stretching. And the second thing I did was to set an interval timer on my phone for every 30 seconds. It dings, and then I get a 10-second transition period, and I move into a different stretch. And many of those, of course, are yoga poses, and I now try to focus on my breathing a little bit more. And the timer allows me to not worry about the time, and the 30-second intervals, especially over 30 minutes, keeps me moving so I don't get bored and my brain doesn't start to like wander. And it's really a sweet spot, and I'm able to fully relax and be in the moment with it, and it's been really, really awesome. And I put on some trip hop music, just light music in the background. I set up my mat in the backyard in the grass. I focus on my breath, and the time actually just flies by. And I started with doing just 10 minutes a day. That to me felt like, you know, manageable. And then I found myself going up in time, and now I'm at 30 minutes, and I feel like that's just the right amount of time for me to get in all the stretching that I want. And I'm amazed at how great I feel afterward, both mentally and physically. So if an overactive mind is something you are looking to gain some calm around and you've struggled with the standard practices that are out there, I would encourage you to try one or maybe all of these tips. And more importantly, you know, as you're trying them out, listen to what your body is telling you it needs. What does it like? What doesn't it like? And then see if you can make tweaks and adjustments so that you can find your sweet spot in a practice that, you know, you can count on when you want to disconnect for a bit, so that you can unwind and come back refreshed and replenished, and most importantly, ready to slay. Thanks, guys. Hope you found today's strategy slay tip helpful, and look forward to connecting with you next week.